Hello and welcome to this episode of the CyberSec Migrant. My name is Femi, and today I've got another guest who I'm going to be talking to. Today, my guest is Mina. Mina, welcome to the CyberSec Migrant.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting. Thank you for having me. So excited to speak or talk. I like that you start to immigrant. Something that will live.
Yeah. Let's start from the very beginning. Tell us, who's Mina? Tell us about yourself.
Okay, sure. Immigrant. That's something that it's a good one. Yeah, working in cybersecurity. I came to Canada December 2019. I studied here in the wireless networking and cybersecurity. And then I joined Bell Canada 2021, and now is almost around 5 years. I'm working in Bell Canada as a part of incident response team. I started with SOC Analyst. I work at that time, and then I promoted to level 2. And mostly we are blue team, defense side. And background in my back home, I had electronic engineering degree. I used to work as a technical role for around 10 years, and then I decided to move to Canada. So the process, big exams, language exams, I don't know, documentation, all of those ones. And then I got admission from here, and then I moved here, and I started, I think, January 2020 my study here, and then I graduated, and then I'm working. Rather than that, from let's say maybe 2 years after joining Bell, I start to follow my passion. So I feel that maybe I can share whatever I'm doing with some other people. So I start to explore and to what area I can help the people, or let's say do some research or talks. So I started with mental health, and actually it got a lot of good attention. I started to specifically work on burnout, and burnout just for the people in cybersecurity, because I believe I cannot touch any areas rather than cybersecurity because I am living in this community. So I did many presentation, many city in Canada, and burnout in any level, organizational, individual, and at the end, because the AI should be anywhere that you believe. So I kind of explore how AI can help. And after that, I noticed that now there is even more AI. There is no pre-AI, no hype. AI is here. So there is no I always say there is no adoption times. Why I'm saying about, because then I specifically work on AI bias. And let's say this year so far, I presented in many conferences. The last one was last month in Quebec City Hackfest. And let's say I have two different direction. One of them is my job, and that I'm working full time in the incident response team, and the other direction is the presentation, research, articles, all the things that is, let's say, my passionate, and leadership, that I'm doing some courses in leadership in cybersecurity.
That's very extensive. I'm going to come back to that conversation on passion in a bit. But I'm going to just ask, as somebody who's also an immigrant myself, how easy or not easy was it for you to transition from, again, because I know that you're originally from Iran. The culture is very different from here. I'm originally from Nigeria. The culture is very different. So how did you deal with that initial shock and that adapting to new country, things are done differently? How do I do it?
Not easy. Culture shock. Let's say specifically for us that we had a life, we had a career, we had a professional life in back home. So let's say when you come as a student, for example, you want to start bachelor degree, you didn't explore any other university, any other degrees. That's very amazing. So you don't have that much expectation, and it's not very hard for you. Like for example, you put something behind and then start. So for us, as you said from your back home, first of all is something about work related, study related, and the other one is about the culture shock, living here. So let's assume you start, for example, for us, studying in the new language, first of all. So of course, I used to work even as an English translator for years in my back home, but I never lived in the English language country, and it's totally different things. Even you had a very amazing score in your IELTS or any other exams, when you go to order the coffee, it's totally different. So that was one of the biggest one. And then the most things that for me first year was after honeymoon phase. It was so less I moved from honeymoon phase to frustration phase. And it's something that I remember one day I told my professor that I said that I cannot work. And he said, why? I just said I used to work as a technical manager, and now do you want me to go to work a general as a student? And at that time we had option just working 20 hours a week. Yeah. So and my professor said, why? I just noticed that even internally, deeply I don't want to do, because I should, I should beat myself and make my expectation very low and start from scratch. It was a really challenge. Or again, maybe if you start when you are younger, even much easier, because over, you get older, maybe just adopting with those changes is, I don't know, is challenging.
It's more
So
challenging.
yeah, culture shock. Let's say back home we have 4 seasons. Here we have 2 seasons. Construction winter. So
Okay.
long winters, patient
Yeah.
people, very welcome people, specifically Toronto, specifically big cities. So very nice people, but at the same time, very workaholic community. For example, every whole week they work and a weekend they have fun. Back home, whole life we have fun.
Exactly.
And yeah, and they sleep very early. And
Yeah.
we had always some night gathering with friends here. I tried so hard. When I came here, I tried to make friends, and I had some friends, and they always said making friendship after immigration is really difficult.
I
So,
agree.
and then
100%.
yeah, because you have some people in your life that you already made friendship years and years, and then you want to start from the zero. So, and then I was thinking, for example, okay, let's go outside, and then I noticed, no, they sleep 9, for example, and even not like that. Toronto after 9 is nothing happen. Even you want to go anywhere, I mean, everything. I At that time, my most challenge, let's say, was like that. They want to shape me and my life like themselves. I always thinking that, let's assume, for example, I wanted to show you something, like, for example, look at my note here. So let's assume this is my note, and this is like 4 pages, anything. So I was always thinking they want to take my life and put it in the Canadian frame. So, and it was very hard for me, because we always wanted to, we had another life. So, and then I was thinking, okay, one day you should decide to think about it. If you want to stay here, everywhere has their own, they live their own way. So let's see how you can adopt. Okay, maybe still I don't sleep at 7:30, because
Nobody does.
really
Well, I don't. I don't.
I really don't, I really can't. I still, my Canadian friends, they do, and very normal. But even culture shock, for example, having dinner at 6. So we never had that one.
That's early. Yeah.
So maybe for people saying, okay, it's very small. No, it's not really small. It's something you feel you are different. And it's exactly impact on your belonging. you know you should feel, and then you start to lose the sense of home. And it happens when first time you back to your family, you back to your back home, Nigeria, Iran, and you will look at everywhere and say, it's not my home anymore. And then you start to think, okay, now Canada
Where's
is
my
my
home?
home. You don't have home anywhere. You don't
Yeah.
I don't
It's
think
challenging.
so. You cannot make home again, because home is feeling and
Yeah.
you feel
Yeah.
belonging. So I came back to Canada first time when I went to visit my family. First year was very difficult emotionally, and this is another part of immigration, that you lose your emotional support system. which is
Yes,
not here
which is
because you
hard.
are alone or with your family, and you used to have those. So, and I came to Canada and I said, is it here my home? And I noticed, even thankfully to the Canada, let's say, that they believe in family. I feel still people here, they value having family, eating together, having quality time, family time. But I felt, no, it's not home. It's not, Iran is not home, Nigeria is not home, for example, Canada is not home. Let's stop sticking to finding the home. Maybe there is no more a home anymore, and we should just see what we can do. So I stop fighting,
Mm,
and I
mm.
stopped to, I think the frustration phase is over now, and then I try to go to the adoption phase. And I can
That's
say
good.
that
That's
time
good.
was a bit peace of mind. After 1 year, actually, it seems that something is changing inside you, and you start to learn. So it was better, but again, I had a kind of experience that when I came here, after 3 months, COVID came.
Yeah, that
So,
happened.
yes. And this is
That was
another
hard.
thing. Yeah, COVID. I rent an apartment in downtown Toronto because it was so amazing for me. And after 3 months, no one was in the street. And COVID time for me was very bright, amazing time. I mean, I graduated, I got a job, I made a lot of networking. But at the same time, I felt
It felt empty,
very
right?
insecure. Yeah, insecure.
Yeah.
And it was different because, again, for example, vaccine came here and it never went to our back home. So and the number of the death
Yeah.
was very
Yeah, it
different.
was very high.
So,
Yeah.
and then US vaccine came and still we didn't have here. So 2 years in COVID for a new immigrant, I started to work in a general job, and just 20 hours, very difficult with a lot of, mask and clothes and everything. And again, something changed, but I think it's for everyone that after COVID, everyone feel insecure. And at the same time, the best bright side is that you should enjoy today, because one day, hopefully they never happen again. One day we open our eyes. We went to the class and we had a professor. He was from Yemen, I guess. And we saw that he's cleaning the desk and he was panicked. And I just said, what happened? We didn't even know. And he said, something is happening, like the movies. And I just said, what is happening? And said, there is a virus is coming, like exactly like a movies. I remember the exact day, March 20th, 2020. They closed the
Campus,
classes.
yeah.
Yeah, the campus totally, and they send us home. Even they didn't have infrastructure for anything, and it takes time. So it was not easy. And then I got a job, very low pay, long hours. And sometimes I'm thinking, if you achieve something in your life, it's because all of those efforts you put, and sometimes you don't remember. But as an immigrant, when even you want to go see your parents, you should fly 20 hours. You should just understand. If something happened back home, I will, in best scenario, I will there 2 days after now. But one day, and there is another thing, maybe the next thing is that I tried so hard to communicate or explain to the people here about myself and my culture and my family, how we look. And one day I noticed it's ours, it's our roots. Maybe I understand, but I should stop just expecting them to understand. They grow up in another system. I grow up in another system. Naturally, we are very emotionally attached to our families, our parents, and it makes us very vulnerable. And now we lose that system, that we lose that emotional system. So it's not easy, but it's for me. So that's what. So one day I noticed that when I'm talking to that one, I remind myself again, again, again. So maybe I should just accept that this is my life and this is their life. And let's say I never be like them and they never be like them me, and I don't expect. So it helps me to relieve and understand. Okay, I should make my life here, and I don't have to be that frame. But I should respect something. I should respect that 6 months winter. You can't fight. You cannot fight. That's why this year, every day in the October, I woke up said, I am so lucky because October was very nice to us. Today is 20 October, and still we have sun. So I try to look at the good part of that. But rather than that, the best thing about them, they are so good, nice people. They are very welcome. Actually, still I don't say sorry in my every sentences, but still I still have some culture shock. Like they said, still my baby, yes, she learned it. She learned it from the daycare, but not me still. Sometimes they say sorry. I said, I no, you don't have to. But I try to be like respectful. They are very polite, very respectful, and best part is that they are good to immigrants.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
true. That's true. And I think, like you rightly said, if you have not walked in the shoes of an immigrant, it's for somebody who has not done this before, even second generation immigrants who were born here, they don't really understand what it means to actually leave your entire country halfway across the world, fly here and start all over again. It's really, really hard. So I think it's one of the things that I really appreciate among our immigrant community is the fact that we're able to do this and succeed, because again, you're fighting multiple battles, like you rightly said. You're trying to build a new life, you're trying to assimilate into a new culture, and you're trying to make a living at the same time, succeed in your
yes,
career. So there's so many things going together, but hey, you did it successfully, and that's some of the things we're happy about. I'm really happy about that. But I want to
yeah,
go back to talk a bit about cybersecurity. That's what we're here after all, right? That's what we do for work.
yes,
Your background is engineering,
yes,
electrical engineering, right? But now
yes.
you're in cybersecurity. It's not very different, but it is different.
It is.
And you spoke earlier saying you were following your passion. So is that what brought you into cybersecurity from engineering?
Let's say I noticed that when I was applying for Canada, so I noticed that I look at the market, and I was thinking that what is the best for an immigrant. Even I really love to go for leadership role or on any management course or something like that. But we need to make money. Okay,
Yes, very important.
that's important. That's very important. So that's again, that was very challenging for me because you have a very limited time in your life. So, and at that time range, you want to, don't forget yourself. What do you like? And you want to always think, okay, I enjoy from what I'm doing, and I don't feel the time is clocking. That fancy, beautiful life. But you should accept as an immigrant, first years you need to make money and then give yourself time. I always have this in my mind that learn from Canadian that 6 months winter they patiently wait, and when the spring is coming they start to plant some flowers, painting. So if you came here, you should learn that everything will be happen over the time. So for me, I noticed that if I want to have a better success, maybe I should for now wait and then go for a let's say major like the IT that had better future or career opportunity. So I applied for the IT. Again, it was challenging. We had some course the same, but some courses really, really, they said a sleepless night, really a sleepless night, really coding, learning again from scratch. But it was good because, this is another good things here that when you are a student, you have a lot of resources. I very very yeah, very good, and you paid already. There is another challenge that I had. I paid full tuition, but when it came COVID, we lost a lot of money on that side because we didn't have access to labs, to data centers, to any router, Cisco. We wanted to see those things, but at the same time, we had access to many articles, many online books. So it was not easy for me to adapt, but I start to learn. I start to make my community networking. We had hours online calls We did do homework together. We helped each other to just pass the time, not be alone, not be isolated in the COVID. And then after that, I had a cybersecurity school again online because there was COVID again. Going from engineering to security again is a shock. Because when you are studying engineering, I'm telling you that I don't know how I did that. Because it was very, specifically electronic is really complicated. And when I came to IT, respectfully to all the engineers and my friends and my colleagues, it was not comparable. I look at everything and I want to go very, very deep, like the microprocessors, everything that we used to do in electronic. And then I just said, "Are you okay? It's done." And they said, "Yes, you don't need to go spend that much time." Again, it was a mindset shift. But the good thing is that, as you said, I already have the engineering mindset. So the mindset is same, but the concept is different. And cybersecurity, why I like and why is passion, because I am passionate to helping the people. And nature of cybersecurity is helping the people. People could be I don't know, your grandparents, my grandmother, help them to not be scammed. You can help the people to, I don't know, not get attack company for not get DDoS, I don't know, malware, everything. So that's why from engineering to cybersecurity and what is related to passionate, I really feel like I said, I had that point in my interview that behind any system there is a human. So I want to help that human. So cybersecurity for me is a way that I like it because I let the other people help to other way. I stick to security.
In that case, would you say there are some skills that are common? So there's skills that you use them in engineering. Right now, as you're doing your career in cybersecurity, you find that there's those skills are also still useful in cybersecurity, even though you learned them while you were working as an engineer.
I can say yes. As a person that has an engineering mindset, or we are patient to find the root cause. So we stick to the problem and we want to see why it happens. Exactly, security. So you want to know root cause of the attack, where it started. I don't know the attack phase, reconnaissance. I don't know at the end, lateral movement, C to C. When it started, what happened. So when you do, and you know the calculation, you have it in your mind that you have the specific logic. So and you know the numbers. Actually, in security, you don't do a lot of numbers, but if you work in risk assessment or I don't know, governance or some those things, you touch, or sometimes data scientists, they touch more numbers rather than us. We mostly touch the attacks. So, but you have the mindset, you know. So you stick the problem, you go, you patiently, and you don't say, okay, let's close it, we will go. You want to know. You know, you want to know, and the dark side is that even you cannot sleep sometimes because you
True,
want to know
true.
what happened. So that's why that's a burnout part. I told you before that you should know that when you should unplug yourself from the work and when. So yeah, skills in engineering helping, not 100%, but I think, let's say like that, if you have it, you have a easier path to do the job rather than the person that doesn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think I would say there's no skill that is not useful, even if you go into a different field of endeavor. Skills, especially soft skills, there are things you can always bring, like you say, critical thinking, analysis. That's something that whatever you're doing, you would always find it very useful. I want to, you mentioned earlier, you started out working in the SOC, and I know many people start out their cyber careers working in the SOC. So, what is a day in the SOC like? Now, I know we can talk about this forever,
Yeah.
not finished. But quick summary. What's it like working in a SOC, working as a SOC analyst, especially working as a SOC analyst for a national telecoms company? That can be easy.
No, no. And the
Short
thing is
answer.
about, yeah, exactly. You know, the scale of organization is different. When you are working in the enterprise, like we call it west to coast. So when you know, it's about a lot of things. That I always look at the SOC analyst like that. From the first day, you have a big responsibility. So you should protect from the first day. Of course, there is some training, something like that, but you touch the real world things. And it's not easy for the person that probably fresh graduate, probably no experience. That's why we should always stick to this fact that we don't have entry-level job in cybersecurity.
Thank you. Somebody says it
If
finally.
you see they set entry level because they want to put the salary in a range of, the entry level. But how you can do that if you don't know networking? How you can, for example, respond, mitigate the attack if you don't know what happened in your network? So
Yeah.
when you go to SOC analyst role, you should always think that, okay, I'm not in the entry level job. So in that case, you feel more responsible. Day-to-day job, never same day. Best part, everyday learning, challenge. If you like to challenge yourself, if you like to learn, so this is the best part. And you should have that, that character open to learn. It's not a 9 to 5 job. You have a rotational shift, you have on-call time, and but let's say, for example, after sometimes you know everything, which is interesting. So you know different parts of the attacks, different parts of the mitigation, what you can do, and you start to learn, from yourself, from your colleagues. Day-to-day life, you work on different incidents based on what's happening, and there is not same day because attackers are getting more and more creative, and with AI they are more and more creative than that.
Okay, so yes, and I completely agree. One of the things you said there, working in the SOC or any role in cybersecurity for that matter, people think cyber has entry level roles, and I say no. Even an entry level cybersecurity role is not entry level
Yes.
because every cyber role expects that you have some prior experience in IT. It could be network, it could be hardware, it could be software, whatever it is. But you must know about IT before you get into cyber.
Yes.
One of the things I wanted us to go down, you mentioned this earlier. In cybersecurity, the role of a SOC analyst is one of the most stressful. It's really, really stressful. And I think, I can't remember the stat right now. I saw a stat a while ago talking about burnout, and cybersecurity and SOC analysts in particular have one of the highest rates of burnout.
Yes.
How
Not surprised.
do you deal with burnout? And what advice do you have for anyone who's working in this space? Because our job is really stressful. Like you said, you're thinking about people, you're thinking about the enterprise. Sometimes you don't have time for your family or your own life. How do you deal with all of that? How do you balance all of that? How do you deal with burnout?
The burnout, I know that I can't say that there is no person that never experienced burnout. Even in security, even the life is full of stress. Specifically, let's say about burnout in security. You can think about individual, but it's not individual level. Even it can, let's say, be in the organizational level. How it will be. First of all, as a psychoanalyst, that as you said, you have a lot of stress daily. So you should understand, or let's make it as a work-life balance that they said. But it's not just on you, it's on your manager team. So they should already have some let's say, some, I always say, digital detox days for you, that you completely disconnected from the laptop and you do sometimes with with the friends or family, let's say quality time. But you always should have, if you are working 9 to 5, you are working 9 to 5, and you are not the person that should fix the world. Because in the security, rather than burnout, we are a lot of perfectionist people. So, and yeah, they really want to fix the world. And we should accept there is a lot of things out of our control. As a psychoanalyst, of course, you want to do your best, okay? But how you can be the best if you don't give you time to relieve from the attack that happened to you yesterday, and today morning you wake up and you cannot forget. There was a study that said specifically women experience more burnout rather than the men. And how it happens. For example, they came home after work, they are cooking, in their head they are thinking about what happened in that malware, for example, stage 1, I don't know, how it came to the system, and they are just thinking. Even they should, for example, cooking, or even some people enjoy cooking. So, but they are thinking. But for the men, maybe they just turn off and then they go to the PS or they play FIFA or something. So, and this is a study, is not
Don't begrudge us our
my.
PlayStation.
No, we are not. I play too. So, but this is not, this is a study. So rather than the burnout, rather than the job is a is the even there is a age. For example, when you are more experienced in your job, you feel less frustrated in your job because you have experience. It's like I thought, okay, I had a very bad week, let's say, and I finished it. I survived. So next week when I have a bad week, I already have some experience. Okay, I could survive one time. So there is more chance to survive again. That's about experience in security. More experienced, more resilient, less burnout. So that's why when you join to the security team, you should know that you should give yourself time to get more experience. But it's not just on you. Managers should know that we are human. We are not robots. So you should expect like a human. We should make mistake. We should learn from our mistake. And unfortunately, the cost of mistakes in security could be very high. Very high. That's another source of stress. So, but you know that this person started this year. So you cannot just ask the people that are fresh or new onboarded to do the everything perfectly like the people working 10 years. But again, you cannot stop them to work on operation because, for example, in that case, they can't take the experience. So managers should be realistic, have realistic expectation from the people and let them work, and at the same time support them with flexible working hours, remote hours. Don't expect them work off hours. Even if I'm a for example manager, if I see someone is working off hours, I really don't want, and I suggest them don't work, because it's like a vacation. If you take your vacation, your productivity is better. If you stick your work, maybe if I'm a selfish, I don't know, person, I said, okay, let's the job goes down. But 1 week later, that person miss first deadline. The day after, call sick day. The day
Just gets
after,
worse.
yeah, get worse. And burnout is not just mentally, burnout is physically. So people start to
Yeah.
experience some signs, symptoms. So if you are smart as a manager or as an individual, you should let yourself know that burnout is everywhere. So if you don't want to feel burnout, you should have your own techniques, as like everyone, for meditation, mindfulness techniques. That's very helpful. I think for security we should do it 2 times a day rather than 1 times. And be easy on yourself. Okay, as you said, sometimes we had a bad week. Okay, this week, for example, me myself, I know it's recording, but I had an amazing presentation in my work. Okay, so of course I feel good now, but at the same time, there could be again against that one, and I have a bad presentation. So just look at that failure as a learning opportunity, and don't be very shocked, don't be sad. It's very hard what I'm saying in security, but please unplug from the work when you are not. Spend time with family, not digital, not scrolling social media. It's difficult. Dopamine addiction, I can speak about that until the morning. But if you are working in really, it's it's something that we are all involved. But for burnout, you should have the work-life balance.
So you've heard it there, people. Have work-life balance. Unplug sometimes. Do a digital detox. It's good for your brain.
Yes, yes.
Let's start to just bring this together. So, a couple of things. One, I want to ask you for your reflection, because thankfully today we have a lot more women in cybersecurity. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it wasn't that common.
Exactly.
So you are a woman and an immigrant. What are your thoughts, and what's been the most fulfilling part of this career, this passionate career, like you said, for you? What's been the most fulfilling thing?
As a woman in cybersecurity, I told my mentee yesterday, you should be so proud of yourself that in male-dominated industry, you get a job, you are working same beside your man, And I look at our women or female nature as an opportunity, as a privilege to, be more empathic or be more with your colleagues when experience the burnout or everything. Because let's assume everyone is the team is full of men and they experience burnout or experience anything and no one is talking because this is a nature, so they are not open to talk. I always feel that women in the team, they balance the team. So
100%.
fulfilling fulfilling moment is that you are different and you know what a long way you came with all the limitation, with all the inequality. When you speak in the meeting, it happens a lot that someone else, for example, a man should repeat your idea and they start to listen to you. And now is less, but it's still there. And there is a lot of, a lot of study that some companies prefer hiring the man or they pay more. So still they are in the society. But fulfilling is that you are doing something that is impossible for some people. Going to IT, impossible. Now you did it. A lot of people hesitate, go for easier way now. And then back to the immigrant story. You came here. Again, how many people around your family, around your friends did immigrant? Let's just think about. Maybe you're the only one. So this is another thing. How many people you see that start to learning, for example, over 30, for example, I was over 30 years old, and again, it's different than when you study 18, when you are 18 years old. I should,
True. True.
I should put more and more effort. So again and again in English, my language, my mother language is not the English. So again, we did it. I'm just telling that start to remember yourself. This is how I'm looking. And then you got a job in, as you said, for example, for me, biggest telecommunication company that I'm sure a lot of Canadian wish to work here or your company or anywhere. So fulfilling is that just look what you did, accomplished. And this is how you can see and you will be proud of what you did as a woman in the security. This is not a diverse industry. And still, this is not equal, mostly male dominated.
Yeah, that is true. And I think that's something that we can all learn from, because sometimes we get this imposter syndrome of, should I be
Yes,
here or do I belong? All of that. But I always say, like I said to my mentees as well, if you start to feel that way, just ask yourself, look back at what you've achieved, what you've accomplished. I remember one of my mentors, this is a few years ago, said to me, he said, you should keep a brag book. So everything you accomplish, everything you are proud of, write it down. Every time you feel imposter syndrome, pick up that book and read it and say, I actually did this, or
exactly.
I did that, or I achieved that.
Amazing.
That is something to be proud of. So I think that's a very fantastic idea. So
It's
if you're listening,
amazing.
keep a
It's
brag book.
amazing.
Every time you
Yeah.
feel like you don't belong, look at what you've achieved, because that is so important. That is crucial.
I was not aware that this is a technique. And I relate a lot because I had a small notebook when I was in COVID. It was COVID time when I joined Bell, and everything good things they told me. For example, they tell me, Mina, good job that you finished this training. I wrote it down. I know it's so funny. Maybe someone even they tell, they look at the page. What is like it? Okay, we had orientation. They talk about Bell and everything. So I finished 5 days orientation, and they give us, for example, certificate of completion. It's not, it's everything everyone is doing, but you need to encourage yourself. I take notes. My manager said, Mina, good job, you had a good day. I take a note. And as you said, in those moments, even still I'm doing that. I spoiled that one, but I'm doing in another way that I learned about myself. That is another thing, because my level now is different than entry level. So something else, you feel more satisfied with something else, so you expect more from yourself. So at that moment, I didn't know that is technique, but I always, when, for example, I don't know what to do with this ticket, I always go and see, okay, I did it, for example, like that. And it really
Yeah,
helped. It's real.
yeah,
I feel, Femi, I feel after immigration, you will be more lonelier than before. You are alone. Okay. You lose your emotion. This is something that comes from my heart. You come as a couple, you have one person that you cannot ask everything from your husband or your wife. They have limited capacity. So you are alone. They said we born alone and we die alone.
We
But
die alone.
after immigration, because I always think that something died, and it's kind of you lost some life and you
Mm.
never get it again. So when you feel very alone, like the immigration, in those moments, you are the only person that you can help yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I always think that how can I help myself? Because in this life, after coming to Canada, you cannot expect anyone comes to you, help you, and it's okay to be not okay. And then
Exactly.
I know it's not easy to ask help. So you should try to ask help, but try to help yourself too. So that's why those note taking, helping,
Very important.
talking, that's a fantastic job that you are doing, talking to the people. For example, let's assume I'm listening to one of your podcasts, like now what you said about those note taking. I relate. You know how
Yeah.
good is feeling? I
Yeah.
listen to someone
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
that, for example, she's director and very high level, and at the same time she's saying that, for example, I feel, I don't know, I feel so frustrated when I don't know, start here. And you say, okay, I was not alone. I'm not the only
Yeah.
person that feel that.
It's feeling
And
this. Yeah.
yeah, so that's why those things you should help yourself. And I think it's good. We are more resilient. We are very hard work. We are making Canada. Canada will be one of the best. It's a very good country, very, very, very massive potential. But
Absolutely.
with the
Absolutely.
with the decide they with decision they did to have more immigrant like us, I'm pretty sure. Look at the next 10 years, and they will be one of the best because I know we should make our roots here. How hard work we are and how we are intelligent, and not I'm not talking about just myself, I'm talking about everyone like you and everyone. I'm looking how they are value the potential and opportunity here. So good for Canada to have all of us.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. I think, like you rightly said, in 10 years' time, we'll start to see the dividends of all of that immigration because then the productivity is going to grow and Canada is going to take its place on the global stage. It's been a very interesting conversation. One final
Sure.
question. What's next for Mina? What are you looking at? What's next? Big dreams, goals? See so in the future?
Burnout. CISO for me is equal to burnout. Hope my CISO doesn't listen to this one.
Uh,
Me, I'm thinking a lot about that one because I don't know. After some recognition or honorees that I received, I got a lot of a question like that. What you think next? First of all, anything that I can help people, and mostly about specifically immigrant, specifically diverse people, specifically people that feel they are not belong to here. So, but for myself, sky is the limit exactly. So I'm thinking very high. Every time they asking me, I got a lot of good compliment. So they said you should be very excited. Last time my friend said, with this honor you should be very excited, yeah? And I just said, I expect that. Sometimes you know what you have inside and what will
yeah,
come. So
yeah, yeah.
I am excited, but to answer your question, first of all, I want to be a TED Talk speaker, which is not a very far, but I want to have those things. But I want to be a technical leader in a way that I can help the people with the soft skills and have the technical understanding, that when you talk to your manager, he knows what you are talking. So it can go to the any leadership role, rather like the CTO, like the CEO, maybe CEO. Why not? To me, I don't mind, and everything that I accomplish, I'm thinking that okay, there is a next step.
The next step.
If you talk to me next time, okay. So sky is the limit. I told you. I don't mind if I think, this is how immigrant thinks. So when you
True.
go to next step, you think next thing is possible for you. And I cannot ignore the fact that Canada give us that opportunity. I mean, maybe I went to, I don't know, Europe because of all of this, all of things that I heard from my friends. There is not that much a clear path, let's say. I don't know, I never lived, I'm just saying. But in Canada, if you want, you will get it. That's why I'm fan of Canada. So if I go back again, I come here, I make life here. But for the next job, of course, I will go to the leadership role because that's my passion.
And we'll be cheering for you every step of the way. We're watching to
Thank
see
you.
And I'm going to put a link down to Mina's LinkedIn down below in the comments as well, in the description below. So connect with her on LinkedIn, and then we can continue to cheer Mina as she goes to the next level of her career and keeps on going higher. So I want to say thank you, Mina, for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you.
Pleasure.
I've learned a lot, particularly, all the advice you gave around motivating yourself. Especially for us immigrants, it can be very hard, and the only person who's going to help us be our best version of ourselves is ourselves. So we've got to learn that. So on behalf of the audience again, I want to say thank you to the audience for watching. Thank you for watching another episode of CyberSec Migrant podcast. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. So we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Castbox. We're also available on YouTube as well, so you can catch us on YouTube if you want to catch us on video. If you're listening on audio, well, check out our YouTube channel and see what it looks like on video. That would be fantastic. And until next time, when I come to you with another guest or another conversation on the CyberSec Migrant podcast, this is Femi signing out. Thank you.
Thank you.